Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about Danny Masterson again. Now I can't remember exactly when the last time I talked about him was, but I will link the videos I've made prior down below because I think I've made at least two discussing Danny Masterson, who's Hyde from that 70s show. That's his best known role as far as I'm aware, and the rape allegations made against him in the early 2000s. I'm not going to go over the details in detail of those rape accusations, allegations, because those are described in those videos, and I also want to focus on what's going on right now, but I will give you a little bit of a summary in case you do not recall. So I didn't even know that there were any updates coming up with this case, to be honest. I kind of felt like it was probably going to come to a standstill, much like many Hollywood celebrity cases do with rape allegations or sexual assault allegations. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is I was basically scrolling on, as usual, the hell app that is Twitter to see what was going on generally, and I came across a clip of Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. Now, I have some opinions about them as well, like aside from what I'm going to talk about, so I'm going to keep those out of this. Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher were on the same cast as Danny Masterson. They were all on that 70s show, to be clear, so they're not just Hollywood colleagues, they were colleagues on the same show. They were people who spent a significant amount of time together, even just filming, who knows, outside of filming. I'm going to go over a little bit of the details about Danny Masterson and what happened, just so when I show you the clip, you have context as to why people reacted the way they did, and then we'll discuss that. That is today's lesson plan. I'll link the articles that I'm referencing down below because I am referencing a couple of different articles for the context I'm about to give you. The crimes for which Masterson was convicted, which he was convicted recently, by the way, are awful and shocking. The two women he was convicted of raping said that Masterson gave them a drink which made them feel disoriented and nauseous, and then he raped them, according to the LA Times reporting on the case. One said he assaulted her so violently that she vomited. Another said he held a gun while he raped her and put a pillow over her face. These assaults occurred in the early 2000s, and the victims were members of the Church of Scientology. Masterson was as well. Yes, that's part of it. Masterson was part of the Church of Scientology. I could say a lot about Scientology in and of itself, but we don't have time for that right now. Basically, Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher wrote letters about, like his character, his personhood, those kinds of letters that are supposed to basically sway a judge in the direction of whomever you write the letter for, a letter of character, right? The Kutcher and Kunis letters weren't very effective in convincing the judge to offer forbearance. Masterson, who has long denied committing the rapes he was convicted of and others he wasn't tried for, was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. His lawyers say the jury got it wrong and that Masterson will appeal the conviction. So key point here, Kunis and Kutcher both wrote letters in favor of Masterson. In his letter obtained by The Hollywood Reporter, which is embedded below, Kutcher called Masterson a role model with exceptional character. The actor who founded the anti-human trafficking organization explained, "I attribute not falling into the typical Hollywood life of drugs directly to Danny. Anytime that we were to meet someone or interact with someone who was on drugs or did drugs, he made it clear that that wouldn't be a good person to be friends with." Kunis said that Masterson has been an exceptional older brother figure to her. "His dedication to avoiding all substances has inspired not only me, but also countless others in our circle," she wrote. "Danny's steadfastness in promoting a drug-free lifestyle has been a guiding light in my journey through the entertainment world and has helped me prioritize my well-being and focus on making responsible choices." Let us just go over what has happened here. This whole thing about drugs was interesting to me, but now it makes sense, right? Because Masterson was accused of drugging these women and then sexually assaulting them, raping them, doing whatever he did. So I really do think the focus here on drugs isn't just like, oh, he was a good guy, he was trying to lead us on the right path. It was a more calculated, yes, he was a good guy because he didn't do drugs and was trying to keep us all from doing drugs, but in this case it's like him especially, because especially in this situation you want to separate yourself from drugs since those are not the biggest element, but they certainly are an element of what you did. You drugged someone so then you could do things to them against their consent. So saying that you are against drugs or drug-free or whatever would be important for you, right? I guess. I can see how that would add up to certain people, but for me at the same time, you know, like it's great that he didn't do drugs. It's great that he told Kunis and Kutcher to not do drugs, like cool beans, I guess, but that doesn't really mean anything. On the contrary, you could even make the argument that if he were going to drug people, he'd want to be sober while he did it so he could calculate how to drug them well. I'm not saying he's a murderer, but I'm saying if someone were a murderer and they wanted to kill you, they would want to be sober and they'd want you to be drugged, right? That would be the ideal, not the other way around. They wouldn't want to be so fucked up that they don't know what they're doing, especially if they have to cover their tracks, and especially if they want to undermine your potential testimony in the future, right? It's easier to be like, oh, well, that girl was so fucked up on drugs, she didn't even know what was going on, so her accusing me is completely invalid. So the whole thing of focusing on drugs, I understand, but at the same time, to me, doesn't really say much. Especially with rape allegations, I just feel like there's not really much that anyone could ever say. I'll look at the circumstances like much of the public does, and I'll decide based on the circumstances what adds up to me. But saying that someone was a devout, religious, whatever, or against drugs, or like vegan, like that truly does not change someone at the core of who they are, right? So I'm just gonna say that. Anyway, let's look at the clip now.
Are aware of the pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
We support victims. We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years. So that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read, and not to undermine the testimony of the victims or re-traumatize them in any way. We would never want to do that. And we're sorry if that has taken place.
Our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
So as you can imagine, the people of the internet had a lot to say about this clip. Now, to be very clear, per usual, disclaimer, not a psychologist, psychiatrist, body language expert, not a whole lot, honestly. The general public, the way everyone read this that I was seeing in the comments, now obviously it's not like 100% everyone agrees, but a lot of people read this as a very weird way to make a statement. First of all, because of their stiff bodies, right? They both just look like they're like this, which, to be honest, is not surprising considering the situation they're in. Like, you're friends with someone for such a long time, then they're accused of something, and you defend them, which also is not weird, because if they're your friend, of course you're not going to believe immediately if someone says they're a rapist. You're not going to be like, ah, yeah, it makes sense. It's like, no, if you've known someone, ideally, hopefully you wouldn't choose to be friends with a rapist. So it's almost like your brain is like, okay, no, there's no way, because we're friends and I wouldn't befriend someone like that. People were very critical of this response also because they say that Kutcher and Kunis seem defensive and angry. And frankly, I can kind of see the defensiveness. I don't know about anger as much as it seems like passive aggressive. It seems like they're annoyed that they're in this situation. And this is all public speculation, and this is all also, in my opinion, projection. Like, all of us who are watching this clip individually are projecting whatever the fuck, you know, is going on in our lives, our past experiences, whatever. So I don't think we can just look at a clip and be like, oh yeah, for sure, they're terrible people. What I can say is that it's interesting to me that people who act as a job don't understand, watching this back, how it comes off, because that really is kind of the core of all of this, to me anyway, is I don't know what's in their hearts and their brains and their souls. I don't know. That being said, when a shitty situation occurs, I really do think the best we can do is to project ourselves in a way where we really communicate how we're feeling. Here, either they're not really communicating how they're feeling well, and therefore they're coming off as passive aggressive, they're coming off as angry because they're disappointed, because they're sad, because they have a whole array of other emotions, or they really are communicating how they feel and they actually are annoyed about all of this, or they are, pissed off, or they are, and they're just putting that out there. And whatever feelings they have, I'm not here to police. They feel what they feel. But it's also like, you need to realize that, first of all, this isn't about you. Like, that sounds bitchy as hell, but in this case it's true, so I will be bitchy as hell. This is not about how you guys feel. Like, your friend was a disappointment, your friend failed you, potentially, if you believe he's guilty. I can empathize to a degree. I think what also pissed people off is like, this is really not about you guys being upset about your friend. You can be upset about your friend and that's valid, but in this particular case, you guys wrote letters defending your friend and colleague at the time, which is also not strange and expected. So I can't vilify them for writing a letter defending someone they probably thought was a good person. But if you are going to take back what you said, and if you are going to apologize for saying anything, then at least be real about it. Because even here in the clip, and I'm paraphrasing here, so don't take it too literally, but it wasn't meant to become public, it wasn't meant to discredit the victims, and it's like, well, it was, though, meant to discredit the victims. Like, the letters were meant to say, Danny Masterson is a good person, he wouldn't do this. Like, the whole point of these character letters is to underline the fact that the character of the person is not what is being claimed by said victims. So when they said that, I was like, well, the whole point of your letter was to defend your friend, and defending your friend meant either implying or saying that these victims were lying or not truthful or whatever. That includes Danny Masterson not doing this. I think that's also why a lot of people were pissed off, because it's like, all of this seemed like they were, well, reading a script, which isn't necessarily bad, because if I were in a stressful position, I'd probably do the same. But here it seems scripted in the way that it's fake. Like, the body language doesn't add up with what they're saying. Like, they're sorry for the victims and, like, they're disappointed or whatever, but their body language seemed like they're about to swing at someone. So I think that really caused a lot of confusion online and a lot of backlash. And again, we return to the main point. These people are actors, and I'm not saying they should act upset if they're not, but it's like, your whole job is knowing how you project yourself and how you communicate your emotions. So you'd think that when it comes to communicating your emotions, it's unimaginable for me to put myself in the position of a friend I've known for 25 years is a rapist. I don't know what that's like. But at the same time, when it's your whole job to know how to make your true emotions come through, they both seemed unempathetic, and that's also what the audience had a problem with. Now, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Frankly, I think they should have just not posted anything if it was to post this, and I think that was another thing that the general public was saying, that it was like, okay, either post something that's like done properly and that properly shows how you feel. So if people critique it, you can stand by it, but don't just post something to post it and then, when people critique it, then retract, being like, oh, well, we were upset, we were this, we were that. It's the kind of thing where you have to be calculated. And I know calculated has negative connotation of like being cunning, but I really do think in a lot of these moments that involve PR, that involve how the public receives anything you say, I really do feel you have to sit with it for a second and decide how exactly you're gonna say things, specifically when it comes to crimes as heinous as rape. So I don't even understand how any of this got through. We come back to the usual fucking thing. Where are the publicists? Where are the people who are close to them that can be like, hey, this comes off as XYZ. And it's hard for me to believe that Ashton Kutcher or Mila Kunis would just post this without showing anyone. That they'd just be like, you know what? Upload it. And if they did that, that's super stupid. But it's like the people closest to them should have also said, hey, like, if this is how you feel, that's fine, but this is how you come off. If that's how you want to come off, okay, but You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.